My name is Chandler Jordan, and I am the Program Director for SC Economics. I am a resource for you, a support system for you in implementing both economics and personal finance in your classroom. If you don't know who I am, hi, welcome. I hope that you will hang out with me a lot more. Tonight, you guys are in for a treat. We've got Megan James from Mason Prep down in Charleston. She is going to share with you guys some awesome new resources by Next Gen Personal Finance, and specifically their algebra collection. And so, Megan, I am so happy that you're here with us today and to share us all these scary math things for us people who are afraid. No, but I'm sure this is going to be great. It's going to be a great way of integrating both math and personal finance. So, Megan, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thanks, Chandler. I appreciate it. Before we get started, do y'all mind just throwing in the chat real quick where you're from and what you teach? Because I can kind of aim things a little bit more so that it's fitting everybody. So if you can tell me your town or your school and what subject or grade you're teaching. All right, so we've got 6th grade math, hospitality and further management, nice. All right, math and technology coach, great. All right, excellent. If anybody's still typing, feel free to throw that in there. I'm just going to get my presentation up here. And I apologize, I'm a little bit rusty on Zoom. Luckily, my school has not had to do very much virtual this year, and all of last year when we were hybrid most of the time, I was using Google Meet. So I'm a little rusty on here. Forgive me if I'm off a little bit. But I am Megan James from Mason Prep in Charleston, and if you want to use this, if you want to use the QR code to sign in for SC Economics, you can. Just to tell you a little bit about myself, I teach middle school math at Mason Prep down in Charleston. We're a K-8 independent school, and I teach 7th and 8th grade pre-algebra and algebra. So I have the advanced students. Very fortunate to have a really supportive school where they want us to integrate as much real-world math as possible, which to me means science, because that's about as real as it gets. I'm a South Carolina financial literacy master teacher, and I'm also a South Carolina independent schools master teacher. And also previously National Board Certified. I facilitate the SCISA Teacher Institute for new teachers in the summer, and I have my master in teaching from Seattle University. I'm also a marathoner, and if you have anyone in your life who runs marathons, you know that that's all they'll talk about. So gotta throw that in there, even though it's a little bit irrelevant to what we're talking about right now. But I know that we're all, if you're anything like me, it's that time of year where we are exhausted, and you know, we have one more half day tomorrow, and then that great prize of Thanksgiving. So if you are as tired as I am, I'm going to try and get through this pretty quickly, just so that we can all get on to enjoying our vacation. I do have a tendency when I'm a little nervous, I talk really fast. So if you need me to slow down, just throw it in the chat or wave me down or something, and I'll slow down for you. And I'm part of the South Carolina Financial Literacy Master Teacher Program, which is an amazing program. Chandler will tell you more about it. But if you have not become a part of it already, I strongly urge you to check it out. Great opportunities for professional development and leadership as a teacher. I think, you know, here in South Carolina, we always need more opportunities for our teacher leaders, and this is a really, really great opportunity for professional development and networking. And she'll share more about that with you. So for tonight, we're going to be taking a look at the next generation personal finance financial algebra curriculum, which is newly released this year. It's pretty fantastic. If you've used any of their resources in your classes, you'll know that everything is top notch. I've never seen anything that they've done that hasn't been fantastic, and this stays right in with there. I'm going to give you some lesson highlights. Some of these are ones that I've used in my class or that I'm planning on using in the next couple of weeks, give you some teacher tips and everything. Also going to share a couple of additional resources from Next Gen that are really helpful, and then talk to you about the stipend and incentive for here. All right, so jumping right in, I'm going to take a look at the financial algebra course overview here. And I think, did this just pull up to the one-pager financial algebra course? Perfect, okay. So this is going to give you just a quick one-page overview of how their curriculum is rolling out. The idea is this is for high school math teachers who are looking to weave real world personal finance in with their algebra classes. Like I said, I'm a middle school math teacher. I am using this a lot in my Algebra 1 class, but I'm also using it with my pre-algebra students, just as things to supplement. If I were able to get just a financial algebra class, this would be a great plug and play curriculum. I mean, it's amazing. It has everything you need and more. They have just started rolling it out. So the first 2 units were released in August of and each of these units, it's a personal finance unit that has a core math competency in there. So the checking unit really goes off of linear equations. The savings unit is systems of equations, and then budgeting is systems of inequalities. Those are the 3 that have been released so far. You'll notice that unit 1, taxes, hasn't been released yet, which may seem kind of backwards of why haven't they had unit 1? And part of that is NextGen really likes to keep things as current as possible. So they're not going to release it until all the tax code has been updated and they've been able to update all of their activities to reflect that. The investing unit is coming out next week, and we have some sneak peeks of a couple of lessons in there. And then they're just going to keep rolling things out as they go. Everything that I've seen so far has been really fantastic and top notch, and they're really good about taking feedback and improving from there too. So I think we're going to be in pretty good shape with these ones. So that's just kind of a general overview of what they offer. In terms of how these lessons work, they're divided up into personal finance lessons and math lessons. For the personal finance ones, there's always some kind of intro activity, then some really solid personal finance resources that are really, really geared towards all that finance information. They'll connect it to math and then have some kind of exit ticket. They really, really use a lot of great cases as well, with case studies to be able to review things within that context, developing those math skills within a real world application as well. Then they also have their more straight up math lessons that are a little bit more cut and dry, where it's really focused on those algebra skills. From talking to other teachers who've been using these, some teachers have been using these math lessons to teach the actual math. Some have been using it more for review. What I've been doing with these is using these math lessons as more of an application. So I've been teaching my regular algebra as I normally do, and then pulling these in to be able to practice and apply and all those kinds of things. What I really like about the math lessons so far is that there's a really nice differentiation built in. They have things at different levels that are available where kids can go a little deeper. The ones who are ready to jump right into it can, whereas if you need to back it up and teach a little bit more along the way and provide that support, they're ready to do that as well. All right, so before I go in and start really highlighting some specific lessons, I'd love to give you guys a chance to just jump in and explore and see what it is. So I'm going to give you this, I'm going to kind of show you a quick overview and then give you a little bit of time to just kind of poke around on your own and see what is working for you. Did that pull up the right page that I'm looking for? Excellent. So this is, if you have a Next Generation Personal Finance account, you're definitely going to want to be logged in here. That will give you full access to see everything. If you don't, that's okay. You'll still be able to see most of it now, and the things that you can't, I'll highlight. But you're definitely going to want that later, because that will give you access to everything and all kinds of amazing stuff. When you pull this up, it's going to get you to the unit 2 that are here so far. So this, the checking and linear equations is unit 2. Saving and systems of equations is unit 3. Budgeting and systems of inequalities is unit 4. When you get into each of these, and I'm logged into my account, so some of this stuff over here with these answer keys and stuff, if you don't have an account, you won't see that right now, but you will be able to see it later. These are all the lessons. So if we're looking at the checking and linear equation, it's starting with these first couple ones are the personal finance ones of the how checking works, the beware of banking fees, online and mobile banking is personal finance. And then the math lessons are the linear growth patterns, the writing linear equations, graphing linear equations. And then it even gets into scatter plots and linear regression, which is, to me, really interesting. I'm kind of a nerd like that. But they really give you access to the technology and the real world scenarios to make it really applicable. So within each of these, there's a student activity packet, an application key, the application problems. These lesson guides, one thing that NextGen has done recently is they've kind of changed their organization of stuff, where as you're accessing these materials, it's going to create, I think you'll be able to see this right now, it's creating a lesson guide. And now when I open this up, I'm going to be opening up kind of my own PDF of all of these things that has all of the links to it. These are questions that are in the student activity packet with all of the answers. It's giving me kind of my own on-demand key because they really don't want kids to be able to find it in this age where kids can just Google anything. They really want to make it hard for kids to be able to do that. So what I found as a teacher, because it's kind of creating this on demand every time, you end up with lots and lots of tabs open. To me, it's been helpful to print this out and kind of have it and be able to highlight the things that I need so that as I'm teaching, I have access to that information right away. But it starts right out with what I really like in this checking unit is it has all of these, it has lots and lots of graphs for them to be able to read. There are articles, there's videos. It's a really good mix of lots of different information for kids to be able to access in different ways, which really helps to build that reading and writing across the curriculum as well within our math classes. So I'm going to back up here. In looking at, oh, my toolbar's hidden. There it is. Okay. In looking at these lesson guides, so what I had just pulled up was the teacher lesson guide. If I'm looking at that as a student, I can pull up this Google Doc that then I'm able to, if I want, I can make a copy and edit this however I want to so that I can present it to my students in the way. You can just use it all right as is, but if you want to take some things out, change some forms of questions or anything like that, that's all right there. In this unit as well, if you're signed in, let me just browser back up. If you're signed in, you can also get down to the assessments at the end. If you're not signed in, you won't be able to see those right now, but we can take a look at those later. So I'm going to give you about 5 minutes right now. I'm going to give you this link to the financial algebra course and just take a few minutes to take a look at what you're seeing and what looks interesting. And if you have any questions, we can start those out, and then I'm going to highlight some lessons. And guys, get a thumbs up if you're able to access that through the link.
Megan, to help us, the non-math teachers in here, what grade level does this information start being introduced in math?
Excellent. So I would say a lot of these concepts can be introduced in 6th and 7th grade when it gets into linear relationships. There's a lot in here with percents as well, and exponents. Once you get into your 8th and 9th grade, that's where they're very solid in a lot of this stuff. So NGPF says that they're gearing it towards high school. I would say it's accessible lower than that.
Okay, awesome. So really middle school entry, like 6th, 7th, barely, really 8th, 9th, 10th is where you're going to really be able to hit. Okay, awesome. I think just sharing this out with other teachers, knowing what that grade dynamic is.
Let's take about a minute more. If you've seen anything that looks intriguing to you, throw it up in the chat. If you see anything that looks like it's something you might be able to use in your class. Oh, Joyce, that's going to make it tough, but trust me, there is so much to see once you get on there. And as we get going back here, I'll screen share some more of it so you'll be able to see more. Alrighty, so I'm gonna jump onto highlighting some more. Okay, I'm gonna jump back into highlighting a few more lessons on here. So this is one from that first checking unit, starting out with how checking works. So just showing you that lesson overview. In this one, kids start out by talking about how do people really pay for stuff, and that can turn into a pretty interesting discussion of kind of what they're seeing within their families and how they spend money on their own if they have that much responsibility yet. When I did this lesson with my 8th grade algebra students, I didn't just hand them the packet and have them fill stuff in. I took a lot of this and just copied and pasted it right onto some Google Slides so that I could display things up, and then we did things through my students have individual whiteboards, so they're constantly writing and showing what they think and turning and talking to a partner. They were convinced that this other right here, where it has this chart with the 4% other, they were convinced that that was cryptocurrency. They're pretty sure that that's what a lot of people are using right now in their world. That's very famous. But we also talked about how do you think this might change in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years. They're very interested in talking about that. There's all these links to really great articles and good resources about free checking accounts and how to set those kinds of things up. My students were just so interested that they could see real actual data and get onto real banks and see how this is going to work right now. That even though they're only in 8th grade, that's a pretty big reality to them to be able to see how it's really working. We skipped over a little bit on some of the fees and checking accounts and stuff like that, because they didn't need a whole lot of convincing on there. To them, it makes sense. Of course, you would open up a checking account. Different populations, that may be something that you would need to work on that trust a little bit more. Then we got into looking at actual bank statements and why those are important. And one of the most interesting ones that we did was this fine print activity, which is a pretty classic NGPF, where they give you a document and you have to really go over it and crunch numbers and things like that. So this checking account one was so interesting to have them see how it was working. This is taking a little while to load right now. But it's coming up with a PDF of an actual bank statement. I guess it's not really an actual one because they've faked some stuff on here. But just giving them some time where I just said, here, look at this and be your most judgmental self. Tell me everything you can about this person, and what can you, what can you be a detective? What can you see about them? And so it was really interesting having my students try to pick apart. And at first they kept seeing this hotel, 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 and so immediately they were like, this is someone who goes on vacations all the time. And clearly that's not true. This is their payroll. And so being able to have that really rich discussion of, well, what are these different things and what do they mean, and what could be happening, what could be contributing to this kind of spending and all this kind of stuff, really, really interesting. And there are, in addition to the open-ended discussion, there's a lot of really specific questions in here that they have to dig deep into the numbers on here. Just to point out something that I wouldn't have expected my students to think about on here, as we were talking about, how does this person spend their money? They really zeroed in on that this person only spent $29 at the supermarket, So my students were convinced that this person only spends $30 a month on groceries. And they told me, well, yeah, they buy ramen all the time. That's it. You know, this is what they're living off of. They're just buying a little bit of food, and being able to talk about, well, you know, just looking at the checking statement, there's all these credit card bills, and that's hiding a lot of other expenses too, that probably they are spending more than $30 a month on groceries. And having their expenses look a little bit different than what meets the eye at first. But these kinds of great activities are cherry picked from across all of their other resources and really pulled into where they're most relevant. Also, we worked on this application of writing linear equations, which, if you're teaching algebra at all, I mean, this is one where we do these forever, of slopes and intercepts and all this kind of stuff, and variables and constants and coefficients and all these things. This is something that I used this at the end of the unit to kind of pull it all together and review. So I wasn't using this to teach, but I was using it as a great way to practice all of this stuff. And just because where it starts going into things that are very applicable, where they're talking about, you know, how things are working, and how does this all fit in with overdraft fees and deposits and balances and all that kind of stuff. So this is a really good, you know, all of it's right there that you can use. I had my students do this in partners so that they could talk about it the whole time and argue over who was right and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a really, really good one. But you can see where it starts with just the very basics of putting the equations together. Then it's taking situations and making equations. And then once you get down to the level level 3, that's where they're having to really analyze and think critically about what's going on up there. So I thought this was a really great activity that my students enjoyed it. It was something different, but it also really was reinforcing a lot of those financial concepts as well. All right. Another fun activity that we're getting ready to get started on this one, and I'm stealing this one straight from NGPF. The unit on saving in systems of equations. We've been talking about savings in class constantly forever, but this is a really fun activity to get them thinking about why to save and where their money can be going, with lots of good applications as well. All right, and this is one where you're going to have to participate. This is an intro activity that comes straight from NGPF. On each slide, it's going to give you an image and a description of something you might save money for. And your job is going to be to come up with a good estimate of what do you think the cost of this item is. I'm going to warn you, this is based on national averages. So there were things on here that I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cheap. I can't imagine that, you know, living in Charleston where cost of living is pretty high. Some of it sounded really crazy to me. And then some of it sounded really inexpensive too. So just keep in mind that if your guesses are way off, it may be because of these national averages. But let's just see how everyone does. So I'm going to pull up with each slide, no Googling allowed, no quick searches. You're just going to give your best estimate. But if you can put in the chat what your estimate is for each one, we'll see. We'll have our own little version of prices right here. So if you're ready, put a ready in the chat. All right, we'll see who our champion is. All right, first question is, how much does it cost a PlayStation 5 console? This is a brand new one, bought directly from the PlayStation website. What do you think it costs? $899, $499, $1,000, $500, $799. Joyce, I can't read your first number there. All right, let's see how we're doing here. So the actual cost is $499.99. Someone was very close. Who was that? Matthew was $1 off. Darren, 99 cents off. Very nice. Love it. All right, next one is, what is the cost of a wedding? And this is the average cost of an American wedding, which here in Charleston, they are quite expensive. Here where it's destination weddings. All right, we've got 40,000, 30,000, 11,890. Melissa, I like how specific you are. That's fantastic. Erica's got 50,000. Chandler's going 20,000. Hey, bud, can you please stop doing that? Thanks. All right, so I've got my little one opening up his new Legos that he just got. It's very crinkly and loud. All right, so average cost of an American wedding is $22,500. Chandler, you might be the closest there. That's pretty good. Just something else to highlight on here. Next Gen Personal Finance has really done a lot to try and build inclusivity into their curriculum as well. So you're not seeing just the average wedding, you're seeing lots and lots of different faces being represented and different kinds of families. And I think that's awesome. All right, next one is a down payment on a used car. On average, Americans pay 11.9% of a car's total value. How much would that be for the average used car? Go. We have 17, 3,000, 3,500, 1,200, 5,000. All right, actual is $2,618. That seems very, very low to me. But I guess 11.9% seems low too. I would go higher than that because I wouldn't want to borrow as much money. This would be just kind of thinking about this as a teacher. For me, I would use this as an opportunity to talk about percent error. I would also give my students a chance to research locally and find out some comparison prices and things like that. Hey, bud, can you stop doing that, please? Sorry if you can hear all that. And if you're a statistics teacher, you can really look a lot at variability on here as well. So lots of good ones. All right, next one. Applying for US citizenship. So over the last 10 years, 8 million people have become US citizens. How much do the application fees cost? Go. 1,500, 1,200, 2,500. All right, actual is $725. Darren, that was so close. I'm impressed. All right, next one. Concert ticket, average cost of a ticket to a concert. 100, 100, 150, 50, 150, 350. Actual is $96. And this is where, especially for my 8th graders who aren't spending their own money very often, I'd have them get right on and start researching for their favorite bands and artists and whatever to just check out and see what it is. All right, getting an apartment, you're ready to move out. Experts recommend you have 3 months of rent saved up first. On average, how much does 3 months of rent cost in the US? $1,500, 36, 29, 36. You guys are good at this. 35. All right. $3,294, which that seems right for me for here in Charleston, but I would have thought average around the country that it would be lower than that, but what do I know? And again, great opportunity to have your students, you know, if I were teaching this in class, I would assign each one of these questions to a group and have them research local prices. All right, 1 year of tuition at a public in-state college. $10,000, $14,500, $8,000, $18,000. Darren, that is so specific. $12,915.55. I love it. It is, oh, mine's covered up with the Zoom, $9,687, which my students, when they hear that, are amazed that our school's tuition is higher than college tuition. Then we have to talk about cost of living and apartments and all those kinds of things, but it's a good wake-up call to know how much all of that's going to cost. A 4-day vacation within the United States. Let's go. Erica's got 5,000, 5,000, 2,000, 4,500. I want to go on vacation with you guys because it sounds like you do it up right. All right, this one blew my mind, and I think I don't think I believe it at all. It says $581. I don't know about that. So again, NGPF is pretty good about giving their sources. I'd want to see this one of what kind of vacation is that. All right, having a baby, not even the cost of raising a baby, just the cost of giving birth at a hospital with insurance. How much are the out-of-pocket hospital bills on average? We have 12,000, 35,000, 25, 19, 10,000. And I think probably a lot of us are thinking of those bills of what the insurance gets. This one's asking more of what the individual payer has, and they're saying $4,500 for that, which to me seems kind of low based on my experiences. But again, who knows? All right, down payment for a house. And they're saying the median down payment is about 5.4%. Seems low to me too. So I feel like I've always been given a much higher number of a percentage, but maybe that's what actually happens for people. All right, we have everywhere from 12, 15, 20, $15,490. Great opportunity to take a look at the housing market in your area, or having kids just look for their dream home, and thinking about how long it'll take to do that. All right, a 12-day international vacation. I don't know about you, but I'm ready to travel. It's been a long 18 months or however long we've been on all of this. All right. Ooh, Joyce, I want to go with you if you're ready to spend that much. All right, we have everywhere from 5,000, I think, to 25. They're saying 3,251. Again, I'd want to know where they're getting those numbers. That seems very, very low to me for 12 days international. All right, a new smartphone depends on the brand, but the average price, basic model of a new smartphone, how much is that going to cost? All right, looks like we're mostly in the $900 to $1,000 range. They're saying $710. Seems about right. All right, and again, I would send kids home to talk to their parents about what does their bundle cost and how much are they paying towards things. All right, so that's just a really good intro activity. Can be very engaging, has lots of possibilities where you can use it as a starting point and get into all kinds of other ones. Another lesson this is one that I used with my 7th graders. They needed a lot of hand holding with it, but they loved it. They thought it was really interesting, was looking at different budgeting tools. And we started out, it's taking a little while to get loaded up here. It started out by talking about what are the things that their generation is spending their money on, using these questions of the day, which are always really engaging. And talking with kids, talking with my class about what are the things that you personally spend your money on, and then starting to take a look at some budgeting apps. I mean, it doesn't get much more real world than giving them, here's some apps, what do you want to do with it? They really liked being able to look through all of these, and then we could kind of introduce the zero-based budget versus the 50-30-20. They know enough to be dangerous with that. I don't think they have a real deep understanding with it, but it's something that the next time they hear it, they can go a little bit deeper on it. This writing equations is very applicable to where we are in math, because this is at a level that 7th graders can absolutely do this. 9th graders, this is a great review of being able to talk about how to fit expressions and equations together. And then this was the part that they really enjoyed getting their feet wet in, creating a budget using Google Sheets. There's a great video here. It's not the most exciting video, but it does walk them through very step-by-step of here's how to set it up. Here are some categories that you can use. Here's where you click on all of these things. And I had my students do that, where we all pulled up on our tablets and I paused the video so that everybody could get where they needed to go. And they felt very comfortable with that. It was really approachable. And they felt like it was theirs, and now that's part of their Google Drive that they can work with. The next activity takes 2 people and looks at their monthly budget and how they're spending their monies. And then what I had kids do was get into a partnership. Once they had created those initial budgets, it gets them to start thinking about categories and what category are you going to put your money, your spending into. This was a big struggle for my 7th graders, trying to figure out categories. They really had a hard time thinking about, well, does Starbucks go in the same category as groceries? And, well, it's all food. Do we really want to put those together, or do we want to separate out the wants and the needs? They wanted to make just about everything self-care, because they felt like everything is taken care of yourself. So it was interesting getting that through, but lots of rich discussion and walking away with some really good technology right there. Then it has lots of really good discussion questions, and some application there as well. So really, really good of creating that budgeting spreadsheet, and being able to go from there. I think this might be the last part of that lesson. So the next part, and it always starts them off with a link that then they can work with and then analyze from there. So really, really solid stuff that they're going on with. All right, so this last part here is a sneak peek at the newest unit that's going to be released next week, the Intro to Investing in Exponential Functions. And this is the one about designing a portfolio. I am hoping to use this with my 8th graders later this year. They just finished up the fall stock market game last week. And so they're pretty used to looking at different stocks and pulling a portfolio together. And what this does is help them be able to kind of organize it and track things on their own and not just rely on looking at what's already there. So it starts them out with comparing a couple of different stocks and talking about diversifying and being able to analyze something that's already there. And then the next part is about designing your own portfolio. It uses FinViz as the interactive. If you haven't used that before, I highly recommend it. It is the most accessible. Open this up here. This is the most accessible way to get kids thinking about stocks. Oh, it looks like we're down today. Yikes! Lots of red there. But this is an excellent resource that's so visual and so easy for kids to get right in and start thinking about what's there in the world. Talking about what each of those things can do. Getting a little bit more into bonds, to be honest, for 7th and 8th grade, I would skip over this part. I think that's a little too much for them. But if you were teaching this as part of a high school financial algebra class, it would absolutely be worth it. And then they get them to create their own portfolio. There's a great template that they can use. There's some good interactives where there's a wheel of investments where they can start with an actual investment and then see what happens as things grow and decline and all of those things. Really, really valuable. And then making a pie chart, walking them through all of this different technology, which giving kids access to that and being able to take all this information and make it visual is just so valuable. That kids at all levels, that's such a good skill to be able to have and to be able to carry forward into the next part of their stuff. And they can they're charting their growth, charting their decline, calculating those rate of returns. It's really, but it's getting the spreadsheet to do so much of the work for them, but they're learning how to program it, and it just the STEM applications are just fantastic there. And then here's that wheel stock returns, which I think is kind of a fun idea too. All right. Just some additional resources through NGPF that I think are really valuable no matter what you're teaching. First one is ThinkCAP Fridays. They will send you every Friday an updated current event where there's a quick Kahoot to engage student interest, and then just a 3 or 4 minute video with great discussion questions on it. My students have a fit if we don't do ThinkCAP Friday. So for example, this last Friday, we had 2 of my classes had a quiz. So when they walked in this morning, they demanded that it was ThinkCAP Monday, that we needed to make sure that we made that up. And you can use whatever the current one is for that week, or they have an entire library by date with descriptions. So you can find a ThinkCAP Friday on pretty much anything. In the last year, there's been stuff about cryptocurrencies, NFTs, flood insurance, a little bit of everything. The one this week was about charitable giving for Giving Tuesday. There's lots and lots of really good things that you can use, and you can relate it to anything that you're studying, or just keep it up as a good current event. Another great one is the questions of the day. These are all usually very current, very relevant, and just a quick warm up that you can do at the beginning of the class. Where you can just use them as they come, or you can find something specific to what you're doing. I was so proud today after this one class that demanded that we needed to watch last week's ThinkCAP Friday, and it was about Giving Tuesday and everything. One of my students said to me, well, it should have been about how much does Thanksgiving cost? And I was like, Elliot, let me pull up today's question of the day, because I had just gotten that email that today's question was about how has the cost of Thanksgiving changed from 2020 to 2021 through inflation. And so we did a quick estimate, and then we looked at the comparisons and all that kind of stuff. So it's just another great resource that's just ready to go and current, and always backed by great data. All right. I feel like that was a lot of talking, guys. I apologize. Chandler's going to tell you a little bit more about the teacher stipend, and I can answer any other questions that y'all have or provide any other resources.
Yes, Megan, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for Megan? You did a great job. I know, drink that water, girl. No, that was a lot, but it was great. I think even as like a non-math person, I was definitely able to walk away with seeing how that could easily be incorporated, which I think is just great for, trying to recruit other master teachers and whatnot, having those connections to math. And then I know, Darren, you made a comment earlier about there was something that you could use in your hotel and retail management course. So that's awesome. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, Erica, I think I've really found that there's a lot in there. I think sometimes some of it they throw it in a little dry. So I would just kind of look for that of if it's really just a replication of what you're already doing, you may not want it, but they do a fantastic job of incorporating all the personal finance in there. I would say there's very few things that I've seen so far that's like, this isn't that great.
I agree with you, Erica, though. I've been avoiding it as well. I think I was kind of waiting for tonight for Megan to show me that it wasn't so scary, but now I definitely want to dig into it a little more. So that's awesome. All right. Well, Megan is one of our South Carolina financial literacy master teachers. So by attending this session today, you guys are going to be eligible to earn $100 upon teaching a financial literacy lesson in your class. I am going to follow up this session with an email probably tomorrow that will have her presentation attached to it. So you guys will have access to all of the cool things that she showed us, as well as more information about how you earn this $100. In addition, FC Economics is offering $100 to anyone who attends 5 or more of our sessions this fall. And so in order to do that, you need to fill out the Google form that I just dropped into the chat. So this is a quick form that says that you were here and that you were present and that you stuck around and learned all of these great things about NGPF and algebra, so financial algebra. And so if you guys will take a few moments to fill out the Google form just for your attendance to make sure you get credit for being here tonight. This is also how we issue the recertification credits. So if you guys will fill that out for us, after that, I am done. Unless we'll stick around, Megan and I'll stick around for a few minutes just to see if you guys have any additional questions. But beyond that, thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate you carving out this time for us. And we have one more session on home buying and planning for the future with students in 2 weeks. So I think that's like December 6th. I could totally be making that up. Is that a Monday? I think that's a Monday. Yeah, I was right. So December 6th is our last session for the fall, but don't worry, we will be back in the spring with at least 6 to 8 more opportunities. So thank you again for all being here. We'll hang out and answer any questions that you guys have. I'm going to drop the evaluation in the chat one more time. And thank you guys again.